There is a season in a man's life that no one prepares him for. It does not announce itself. It does not arrive with a warning or an explanation or a clear end date. It simply comes. And when it comes, the man finds himself alone in a way that goes deeper than the absence of other people. He can be in a room full of people and feel it. He can have a full phone and a full schedule and still feel it. It is not the loneliness of someone with no one around him. It is the loneliness of a man who senses, without being able to fully name it, that something is being asked of him that no other person can give him. Something that requires him to go inward, into the quiet, into the place where it is just him and God and the unfinished parts of himself he has been too busy to face. The world calls this season a problem. It calls it depression. It calls it the sign of a man who has not yet figured out how to connect, how to belong, how to build the life that keeps the loneliness away. And so the world offers its solutions. More social events, more content, more noise, more distraction, more of everything except the one thing the season is actually asking for: stillness. I want to talk about that season today. Not to make it easier, not to tell you a formula for ending it faster, but to tell you what it actually is, what it is for, why the men who emerged from it carrying something the comfortable men never had, why they all went through it first, why the wilderness was not the obstacle before the calling. It was the preparation for it. The loneliness you are in, or the loneliness you remember, or the loneliness that is coming for you. It was not a mistake. It was not evidence that you are behind. It was not punishment. It was design. Let me tell you the story of a man alone. He is in the desert. Not metaphorically. Actually, in the desert, the sun is brutal. The silence is complete. There are no crowds, no admirers, no one to perform for. There is nothing around him that affirms his identity or reminds him of who he used to be. Just the land and the heat and the long, empty days. This man is Moses, and he is 40 years into his wilderness. 40 years, not 40 days, not 40 weeks, 40 years of obscurity, of silence, of a life that looked, from the outside, like total failure. Because 40 years earlier, he had been someone. He had been raised in the palace of Pharaoh. He had position and influence and a future that looked significant. And then one act, one moment of uncontrolled impulse, and it was gone. He fled, and the desert received him. For 40 years, the world moved on without him. The people who needed him suffered without him. The calling that was on his life sat unclaimed while he tended sheep in the silence. And I want you to understand something about those 40 years. They were not wasted. They were not a detour around the real story. They were the story. They were the season in which Moses became the man who could bear what was about to be placed on him. Because the man who walked into the desert at 40 was a man who acted out of emotion, who had not yet learned to be still, who had not yet learned to wait, who had not yet been emptied of himself enough to be filled with something greater. And the man who walked out of the desert at 80, the man who stood before Pharaoh, who parted the sea, who carried a nation through 40 more years of its own wilderness, that man had been formed in the silence, in the alone, in the long, unremarkable, apparently fruitless years of a life that looked like it had gone nowhere. God did not use Moses in spite of the wilderness. God used Moses because of it. And that pattern, the wilderness before the calling, the alone before the anointed, the long and lonely formation before the public standing, that pattern runs through almost every man whose name we still speak with reverence. It is not a coincidence. It is a method. You are a man. That means you were not designed to be alone permanently. Community matters. Brotherhood matters. The people around you matter. A man who seals himself off from every human connection in the name of solitude is not being formed. He is being hardened in the wrong direction. That is not what I am describing. What I am describing is something different. The specific season, the one that comes not by your choosing but by a design above your choosing. When the crowd thins, when the relationships that kept you distracted fall away, when the noise of a full life grows quiet, and you are left with something you cannot scroll past or drink away or busy yourself out of. You are left with yourself, and that is terrifying for most men, because most men do not know what is in there. They have been running from themselves for so long that the silence feels like a threat. Every quiet moment is quickly filled. Every empty evening becomes a screen. Every morning that could be spent in reflection is immediately populated with input from other people's lives. Not because the man is lazy, but because the alternative, the actual silence, the actual stillness, the actual encounter with his own interior, is something he has been trained to avoid. But a man who has never been alone with himself does not know himself. He knows his preferences. He knows what entertains him and what bores him, and what he wants to eat and what he wants to watch. But he does not know his fears. He does not know his wounds. He does not know the beliefs running beneath the surface of his decisions that are shaping his life. Without his awareness, he does not know what he actually thinks about God, about his own worth, about what he is here for. And a man who does not know himself cannot be trusted with much. Not because he is unworthy, but because he is untested. He has not yet encountered the parts of himself that will show up in the hard moments. The fear that makes him retreat, the pride that makes him defensive, the wound that makes him wound other people. Those things are there. They are always there. And the man who has never sat in enough silence to face them will be ambushed by them at the worst possible moment. The lonely season is God's invitation to face them now, in the quiet before they cause damage, in the wilderness before the public ministry, in the alone before the people who will depend on you are watching. I want to talk about what rises to the surface when the noise goes away, because this is the part that surprises men. They expect the silence to feel peaceful. They expect the solitude to feel clarifying right away. What they get instead, at least at first, is everything they have been running from. The silence surfaces it all. The anxiety that was always there but was kept quiet by busyness. The grief that was never fully processed. The anger that does not have an obvious target but is real and deep. The questions about God that were pushed aside because there was never a moment quiet enough to ask them honestly. All of it comes up in the silence. And the man who is not ready for this mistakes it for a sign that something is wrong, that the loneliness is making him worse, not better, that he needs to get back to people and activity and noise as quickly as possible. He is wrong. What is happening is not deterioration. What is happening is excavation. The silence is doing what the noise never could. It is revealing what is actually there. And a man cannot heal what he has not named. He cannot address the fear he has never admitted. He cannot bring to God the grief he never acknowledged. He cannot be freed from the wound he refuses to look at directly. The discomfort of the lonely season is the discomfort of a man being excavated, of the surface layer being removed, of the performance being taken away, of everything that was held in place by activity and company and the constant management of how he appears to other people. All of it falling away, until what is left is just the man, unguarded, unperformed, honest. And that man, the unguarded, honest, stripped-back version, is the version God can actually work with. Thomas à Kempis wrote this in the 15th century, in a book that has never gone out of print in 600 years. He wrote, "What doth it profit thee to enter into deep discussion concerning the Holy Trinity, if thou lack humility?" He was writing to men who were filling their minds with knowledge and theology and external religious activity while avoiding the one thing that actually transforms a man, the inner work, the quiet, the honest encounter with his own soul in the presence of God. The man who has been through the lonely season knows what he is talking about. The man who has never been still long enough to face himself does not yet. I want to make a distinction that matters. There is a loneliness that forms a man, and there is a loneliness that destroys him. They can look the same from the outside, but they are not the same. And knowing the difference is important. The loneliness that forms is the loneliness that is faced. The man who is in the quiet and chooses to stay in the quiet, to be present in it, to bring his actual self before God in it, that man is being shaped by the experience he is developing an interior. He is building a relationship with God in the only conditions where that relationship can go deep, the conditions where there is nothing else to rely on. He is learning to hear his own thoughts, to interrogate them, to distinguish between the voice of fear and the voice of faith. He is becoming someone who can be alone without being destroyed by it. The loneliness that destroys is the loneliness that is escaped. The man who is in the quiet and immediately reaches for the phone, the drink, the pornography, the food, the screen, whatever his particular anesthetic happens to be. He is still alone, but he is filling the loneliness with poison rather than letting it do its work. And the things he uses to fill it do not just fail to help, they make the underlying condition worse. They deepen the disconnection. They build in him a compulsive relationship with escape that weakens his capacity to ever be still, to ever be honest, to ever face the thing that actually needs to be faced. The difference between these two men is not their circumstances. It is their response to the same circumstances. And the response is a choice, even when it does not feel like one. You are a man. That means you have the capacity to choose how you inhabit the hard season. Not easily, not without the daily resistance of everything in you that wants to escape. But the choice is there, to stay in the quiet, to face what surfaces, to bring it honestly to God rather than medicating it back into silence, to let the loneliness do what it came to do. That choice is the beginning of everything the season is trying to build in you. Every man who has been genuinely useful to the people around him has paid a price for that usefulness that most people never see. The price was paid in the private seasons, in the difficult years, in the alone. David spent years running from Saul, who wanted him dead, running from the life he thought he was going to have, living in caves, living in enemy territory, surrounded by men who were themselves broken and desperate and on the run. The Psalms he wrote in those years, the ones that speak most directly to despair, to the sense of abandonment, to the cry of a man who believes in God but cannot feel him. Those Psalms were written in the wilderness, in the alone, in the season when nothing was going the way it was supposed to go. And those are the Psalms that have sustained the most people for the most years, across the most cultures, across 3,000 years of human suffering. Not the triumphant Psalms he wrote from the throne, the desperate ones he wrote from the cave. The cave produced something the throne could not. John the Baptist grew up in the wilderness, not as a child who wandered in, as a man formed there. The scripture says he was in the deserts until the day of his public appearance to Israel, in the deserts, plural, for years, in a place of wild animals and silence and the absence of human company. And when he finally appeared, when he finally stepped into the public moment he had been formed for, there was a weight to what he said that drew people out of cities and towns and into the desert to hear it. Because what he carried had been built in a place that comfort could not reach. The pattern is always the same. The depth that moves people is built in private. The authority that people feel when a man speaks is not the authority of a title or a position or an impressive resume. It is the authority of a man who has been somewhere, who has faced something, who has been in the wilderness and stayed long enough to receive what it had for him. And when that man speaks, you hear it. Not with your ears only, with something deeper than your ears. That is what the lonely season is building in you, not a story to tell, a substance to carry. I want to talk about what the modern world has done to loneliness, because we live in a time that has made the avoidance of loneliness almost total, almost effortless. There is always a screen available. There is always content. There is always another person's life to observe, another opinion to consume, another piece of stimulation to fill the silence before it becomes uncomfortable. The average man today never has to be truly alone with his own thoughts for more than a few minutes at a stretch. The phone in his pocket ensures that no quiet moment has to stay quiet, no empty evening has to stay empty, no moment of genuine aloneness has to be endured when it can be escaped in under 3 seconds. And we call this connection. We call it community. We call it staying in touch. But a man who is surrounded by digital noise 22 hours a day and alone with his actual self for perhaps 20 minutes is not a man who is connected. He is a man who is deeply structurally alone and numbing himself against the knowledge of it. Because the connections that the screen provides are not the connections that go deep. They do not know him. They do not challenge him. They do not create the friction that real relationship creates, which is the friction that forms character. They give him the feeling of presence without the cost of it, the sensation of community without the commitment. And slowly, the capacity for real depth, real presence, real honesty, real intimacy atrophies. because it is never exercised. The man who has spent a decade filling every moment of potential silence with content has not avoided the loneliness. He has deepened it. He has just anesthetized himself against feeling it clearly. And when the season comes, when the noise is taken away by circumstance, by loss, by a life that suddenly goes quiet in ways he did not choose, he finds himself facing a loneliness that has been growing undisturbed beneath the surface for years, and he has no practice at being in it, no tools for inhabiting it, no relationship with God built in the quiet, because there was never enough quiet to build one. Do not let that be you. Do not spend this season medicating what the season was sent to do. Here is what I want you to know about the man on the other side of the wilderness. He is not the same man who went in. He carries things the comfortable men do not carry. He knows things the distracted men do not know, and none of it can be learned any other way than the way he learned it. He knows himself. Not perfectly, not without remaining blind spots and unfinished places, but he knows the major territories of his own interior in a way that a man who has never been still cannot know them. He knows what makes him afraid and what the fear is actually about. He knows the wound that was driving certain patterns for years before he was willing to name it. He knows the difference between the voice of his ego and the voice of something truer. He has been in the quiet long enough to begin to hear the difference. He knows God, not as a concept or a theology or a set of practices performed for the benefit of other people watching. He knows God the way a man knows someone he has spent real time with, someone he has sat with in silence, someone he has cried in front of, someone he has brought the worst of himself to and not been turned away. The God he knows is not the God of a pleasant Sunday morning when everything is fine. He is the God of the cave, the God of the desert, the God who was present in the worst of it, and who can be trusted to be present in whatever comes next. And he has a stillness in him that other people feel. It is not a manufactured calm. It is not the stillness of a man who has suppressed everything difficult. It is the stillness of a man who has faced everything difficult and found that it did not destroy him, who went into the wilderness and came out the other side carrying the knowledge that he can survive it, that God does not abandon in the hard places, that the silence, however long it lasts, is not the end of the story. That man is not loud. He does not need to be. There is a weight to him that does not require volume. When he speaks, people listen, not because he demanded their attention, but because what he carries demands it. When he leads, people follow, not because his title told them to, but because they can feel that he has been somewhere. You are in the process of becoming that man, whether you know it or not. Whether you have named this season correctly or not, the wilderness you are in, the loneliness that has settled around you like weather, it is not the end of your story. It is not the evidence that you were wrong about your life. It is not punishment for the mistakes you have made or the time you have wasted. It is preparation. Here is what I will leave you with. When Jesus was about to begin his public ministry, the moment that would change the history of the world, the scripture says, he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Led, not dragged, not abandoned there. Led, intentionally brought into the place of silence and deprivation and testing. 40 days without food, 40 days of solitude, the Son of God in the desert, alone. And when he emerged from that wilderness, everything began. The healing, the teaching, the calling of the 12, the turning of the world. First, the wilderness. Your wilderness is not your punishment. Your loneliness is not your failure. Your silence is not evidence that God has forgotten where you are. If you will let it, if you will stop filling it and fighting it and escaping it, it will do something in you that nothing else can do. It will strip back everything that is not real and leave you with what is. It will build in you a substance that cannot be faked and cannot be stolen. It will deepen your relationship with God in the only conditions where that depth is available, the conditions where there is no other noise competing for your attention. Stay in it, not forever. The wilderness always ends for the man who is willing to be formed by it. But stay in it long enough. Long enough to face what has been waiting to be faced. Long enough to hear what has been waiting to be heard. Long enough to receive what the season was carrying for you. You are a man. That means the depth of what you are able to carry in public is determined by what you are willing to face in private. The weight of the calling that is on your life requires a man of corresponding weight to carry it, and that weight is not built in the crowd. It is built in the wilderness, in the quiet, in the alone, in the loneliness God designed for you. Stay, be still, let it finish its work. God bless you. Thank you so much for the support in the comments section. I read all the comments and it really inspires me to make this content more. Thank you so much. God bless us all.